Reflections of Purpose.
Hello. Thanks so much for joining us. It's Twisted Threads. My name is Karen Sims, and you've joined us for another episode of Reflections of Purpose. And guess what? Today, you get a part 2. Yes, we had a cliffhanger, a to be continued, and we're getting right into it as we always do. Remember that if you hear something that's impactful to you, remember to like and share the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of our messages moving forward. So as we always do, we get right into it. It's rebranding yourself. Part 2, literally rebranding yourself 2.0. And I'm excited about it because as we think about what it is, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to view part 1. So rebranding yourself, part 1, we talked about how to rebrand. We talked about why we want to rebrand. What areas do we want to rebrand ourselves? We talked about giving ourselves permission to live and taking the steps necessary so that we understand. Now, look, I also put myself out there that you all know I'm a life coach, and I'm able to help you figure out what it is you want to do in your life. What's the brand you want to present to yourself first, and then to the world and the universe second. Taking the steps. Now, I want to stop right there in the review of last week and just hit the point of my biggest point for the last time we talked about rebranding is it doesn't matter what they think of you. And the important part of that is because there's an internal rebranding that needs to come forward before the external shows itself. So I love it because a lot of times, you know, we think of Coke and Pepsi and they will change the new Pepsi. And I remember when they had like that new Pepsi and people lost their minds. Why? Because the outside of the can, it looked good and people were excited about it. But what they did to the inside kind of jacked up the brand for them. So literally Pepsi and CocaCola took a view that we can take for our lives and figure out what it is. It doesn't matter if the outside is all pretty and fly, if the inside is kind of garbage now. So when we think about the internal rebranding, the steps and the strategies that need to be created are important. So, number 1, we're not thinking about what other people think of us. We are cultivating and feeding positive thoughts that we have for ourselves. Why? Because that feeds us internally. That helps us to multiply positive thoughts about ourselves. When we understand that it doesn't matter what they think, we literally lose 150, 200 pounds off of our emotional well-being because we get to move more freely. And you know what they say about losing weight? You want to lose weight because the agility comes in. You're able to move more freely. You get to do things in a little bit more way. Now, yes, you know, we get our sexy back. We get to understand, you know, that we can look sideways and not cry about what we see in the mirror. But there's so much more when we think about the internal portion of the rebranding. Number 1, creating a strategy plan. You know, I love it. G.I. Joe would say, knowing is half the battle. Knowing that we need a strategy plan is half the battle. But then we got to create a strategy plan and understanding what is it. So maybe you need to lose the weight physically. Maybe you need to have the surgery. Maybe you color your hair a different way. Maybe you buy the shoes. Maybe you take the trip. Whatever it is, this is an opportunity not just to hit a reset button to take you all the way back to home plate, but this is an opportunity for you to have a refreshing in your body, have a refreshing in your spirit and a refreshing in your soul to understand that I've gone this far and I really don't think that I can go any further with carrying the same things, with having the same identity, with having the same point of reference. And so rebranding allows you to change your perspective, to be reflective on your mindset, and then to push forward and figure out what do you want it to be. So understand, you've lost the weight, maybe you've had the surgery, maybe you've colored your hair, maybe you bought the shoes, you read the book, you went to the class, you got the degree, you got your man, you got your woman, y'all good, you bought the house, you changed your zip code, you did all of those things in the rebranding. And now what's the next step? Well, in this time, you need to take the time to reintroduce yourself to the brand new you. Yeah, reintroduce yourself to the things that you now like. I grew up and I hated Brussels sprouts. I mean, you was not going to get me to eat them at all. Now I love Brussels sprouts. They're like on appetizers. I'm a little bit bougie. If you didn't know, you will know. I love marinated Brussels sprouts and roasted Brussels sprouts. And I want them with balsamic vinegar, and I want them with garlic. I want them all over the place because I love them now. But there was a time in my life where I didn't love them at all. Such is the same thing with many of us. We didn't always, we were not always in a place where we loved ourselves in the best way that we could. So some of those failed relationships and bad relationships and abusive situations were because we weren't loving ourselves to the fullest. But now, I am completely in love with me. And it's not an egotistical thing, but it's because I understand that my position as queen in my life, I demand respect from people, not because I speak it, but because they know that my presence in a place means, well, I need to treat her a different way. I done said in previous videos, if you treat me like I'm regular, odds are you won't be around me very long because I understand that I'm not regular. Now, look, this is not a time for me to boast of myself. I say this to you. You're not regular. You weren't born and created to be regular. When you try to figure out, well, how come I never fit in? Because you were not made to fit in that mold. You weren't created to be regular. So now, when you take off the chains and you lose the emotional weight, you get to move in a different way. But as you're reintroducing yourself, you got to make some declarations. Now, look, I tell people that, I'm bougie, but sometimes I could be hood bougie. Yeah, it's a different situation because there's certain things that I will do, but then there are other things that it's like, no, I can't use particular things and I can't go to particular places. Why? Because I know that I'm not going to accept that as proper treatment for me. And if I'm not treating myself well, then I can't hold that as a mandate for anybody else. But as men approach me, as women approach me, as children and people in the community approach me, they understand that it's with a different type of mindset because of what I'm putting out into the world. Now, you've taken the time, you've introduced yourself to the brand new you. The brand new you who sometimes has more opinions, who may not be as quiet as people once thought, who maybe is more quiet now because now we learn the power of reflection and we understand the power in our silence and just our presence being in a place. Now we've rebranded ourselves to say, I'm a subject matter expert in what particular thing? Are you settled? Do you feel good about that? You feel good about the person who you see in the mirror? Because that's the point of this. Do you feel good about him? Do you feel good about her? Yeah, maybe the gut is there. Maybe, you got another chin going on. Maybe your eyebrows do two different twin things. Maybe. Perfection is not the goal. Better is. And when you understand that better is the goal, you get the opportunity to push further than you've ever done before. Now, look, there's one final step. There's one final step to this rebranding of yourself. You've reintroduced the brand new you to you, and now it's time for the big reveal to the world. That means whatever it is, you got to be comfortable. See, that time with yourself allows you to be comfortable on the inside because the presentation for everybody else, they're only going to see the outside first. So they'll see the bright yellow and be like, wow, that's sunshine. Yeah, that's wonderful. But you got to understand that unless you feel like sunshine, the yellow won't make the glow the way that it needs to. This is part 2 of our rebranding strategy. If you miss something, go back to the first part of this rebranding yourself and understand how important it is. This is a 2-step process because we understood for Twisted Threads. Look, this is a process. You got to get to know who you are and get to know your importance in the world around you, or not only will you miss it, but other people will be left behind. They'll be left stagnant. They'll be left in places that they wanted to progress to. But if you don't move, they can't move. I love that. It's that Ludacris song. When I move, you move. Just like that. Rebranding yourself is an important part of creating future, sustaining, lasting legacy for yourself, for your family. Don't miss this part. We want to be strategic and intentional in how we do it because it's important. Look, if you've heard something that impacted you in a good way, remember to like and share the videos, follow us and subscribe on our YouTube page, and you can follow us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. Make it an amazing day on purpose. Why? You're worth it. Have a great one.